Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Turn podcast. Everyone, welcome into the program. I hope that you're doing well, and I hope that the holiday season is upon us. And ladies and gentlemen, if you hear jingle bells like that, I apologize beforehand. That is a family issue with the cat, who is a cold-blooded killer. So here we are. So again, I apologize for that. But in the meantime, everyone, welcome into the Computer America Show. ComputerAmerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, show notes, articles, reviews, podcasts, social media links, and contests and giveaways. Ladies and gentlemen, you can find everything that we do at computeramerica.com. And while you're there, be sure to check out, obviously the show notes for today will include all the different websites, articles. Of course, we're going to have Nathan Evans, managing editor over at Popzara.com. And we're going to have links to the podcast that they do every single month. They do the State of Gaming. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But ladies and gentlemen, looking over the topics for today, it's going to be a lot of fun. We have a lot of games, a lot of movies, a lot of pop culture, and really that's where Nathan shines. I really do feel like it. He's very in touch with kind of the tech community and tech policy all around, but I think it's a lot of fun to talk about the fun stuff with technology with Nathan. So sit back, relax, let's go ahead and bring Nathan on. And as I said before, managing editor, popzara.com, you can check them out. But Nathan, welcome back onto the program. How you doing?
Ben, welcome back. Belated Thanksgiving, early holidays, Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, all the stuff. I don't even know what's going on anymore. Is the second day of Hanukkah, but yes. Christmas is next week, and I don't know where Kwanzaa fits in there. But
Merry Christmas, Kwanzaa, absolutely.
But if you're non-denominational, then happy
enjoy
Tuesday.
The lights. Then they get
enjoy the lights.
Yes, then they get a free pass to enjoy the lights. So Nathan, how you been? You're just getting over being sick, though you sound great. So don't worry about it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, if you would have talked to me last week, I would have sounded like Bob Dylan. No, I got my flu shot, got my pneumonia shot, got sick over the shots.
Yes,
but I got them anyway because it could have been worse. So get vaccinated with the nice vaccines, people. Don't get sick and don't bring that crap into your house. Bring cash and gingerbread, but don't bring sickness.
Yes, I've heard a lot of there's a lot of bad illnesses, and not just COVID or anything like that, but just hey, the flu itself is really
COVID. What's that? Lately. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, really? Well, you must live under the biggest rock on the planet. So I know that you're joking, but ladies, why don't you, Nathan, tell the nice folks who may be listening to us for the first time what our goal here is with the program when you come on.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know
what the mission
the nice
of Popzara
folks
is too, as well.
The nasty folks are my people. No, but little Popzara, as I say every month, it's a website, not a magazine, that we deal with a little bit of everything from pop culture, but not like social media pop culture. No Kim Kardashians, no butt shots, no Biebers, no TikToks, none of that stuff. That's for the youngins. We're the old school, which sounds weird to say. No, but we do games, we do movies, we do tech, we do books, we do all that stuff. A little bit of politics, but not a lot, because frankly, nobody wants to see that. But no, it's a little bit of fun. As we say, it's a little Bizarra at Popzara. That's not going to catch on. That alliteration is not going to catch on. No one's going to get a merch or a t-shirt deal out of it, but it sounds fun.
I was hoping that there was a kitchen apron with that saying, but
hold on, I'm writing this down. Kitchen apron.
You know,
boxer shorts.
and I was like, whenever I think about merch, I always think about the first time Craig kind of found one of those stores that you can just upload any image and you can buy anything you want with it. You know, he went on there, he uploaded the Computer America logo, you know, the old one that was really well designed from the 90s. And he had that thing on thong underwear. He had that on baby clothing. He had that thing on sweatbands. Like I don't think a lot of our audience sweats on a regular basis. Yeah, you know, he put that thing on everything. It was very fun to see.
And, you know, if you go to any major city, there's usually like a Hello Kitty pop-up or Hello Kitty store somewhere.
Yeah.
And if you've ever seen the Hello Kitty products from Japan, you'll know they'll license everything. And you know where I'm going with this. I'll just come out and say it right now because it does tie into tech somehow. But I've seen Hello Kitty toothbrushes and I've seen Hello Kitty dildos. I have seen Hello Kitty
there you go.
Everything. Turns out there's not a lot of difference between those two things. But but the fact is that I feel bad for merch because there's a lot of podcasts I really like. There's a lot of websites I really like. Under no circumstances if the apocalypse happened and we needed materials, would I ever wear a t-shirt? Or would I ever wear a baseball hat? Would I ever wear anything from a website or a podcast? I'm sorry, but you got to pay me.
I've kind of felt the same way, which is why, you know, no offense, we don't have the best merch ourselves. Is that I always wanted like merch that was like, you know, fun or funny, or it could stand on its own without the background knowledge of the program. Unfortunately, I'm also very creatively bankrupt, so I don't have a lot of good ideas for what that could be.
I don't know when you want to get into it, but one of the topics that I'm very excited to talk about is a particular movie starring blue people. And
you know, let's lead with that. Absolutely, go for it.
If you want, we're talking about Avatar, the new Avatar, The Way of the Water. But I want to talk about it from a technical perspective.
Sure.
I don't want to spoil the movie for anybody, but I will say this: when I was reading analysis of Avatar, I kept coming across the same, I'll just say, incomplete analysis, which you can find yourself, which is happening today. People talk about the box office. They talk about how much money the movie made, how much money the movie needs to make, how much money the movie costs to make. And the big one that came out last week was, why does anybody want Avatar? The movie has no cultural relevance. We keep hearing that term, cultural relevance. And I thought to myself, well, Kim Kardashian's everywhere. Is she more culturally relevant than Avatar? And does that benefit the society? Like, we're not having conversations about content anymore. We're having conversations about marketing, because that's what it really is. Like, for example, you keep hearing this argument that Avatar cost $350 million. It needs to make like $2 billion to break even. That's not true. Like, that's just patently not true. The movie cost $350 million to make because they made two of them. Like, this was shot back to back with Avatar 3. Yeah. So the idea, it's like the Lord of the Rings.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I read this yesterday that they essentially shot 2, which, you know, came out, you know, just this week, and then they shot 3, which is already in post production, and then they've already shot the first part of the 4th movie, like Act 1 of the fourth movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically what they did with Back to the Future, like I said, Lord of the Rings and all this stuff. They shoot, and for you older people, the Three Musketeers, or the Four Musketeers. But what I mean is that we're not talking about the film anymore. We're talking about all that. So let's go ahead and continue that train and talk about the technical aspects. I don't want to spoil the film. We saw it on opening day, on my birthday, actually, last Friday.
Happy birthday.
It was a good present. I will say this: I love the movie. I did not think I would love it as much as I did. I'm a fan of Avatar, first one, but not a huge fan.
Yeah.
But we're in a world where everything is Marvel, DC comic book. And here you go, James Cameron, a guy that's been around our whole lives, my whole life, your whole life, who does things his own way. And you kind of get lost in the shuffle that he's a madman. He's a control freak. He's all this, but he delivers. And I could sit here and tell you, but the phrase we kept using was, it's an action documentary, because that's what it feels like. It feels like, imagine if your screensaver was rated M for mature, because that's what it feels like. But I'll just say this without spoiling anything. The movie is visually spectacular. It is far and away the best looking film I have ever seen. Like, there's no question about it. the last time I raved about a movie this much on this show was Top Gun Maverick. Yeah. And you remember I sat here and I told you I think this is going to be special. I thought that movie was going to do something interesting, and I feel the same way about Avatar. Once you get all the incompetent movie critics out of the way, you get the incompetent tech people who think they're movie critics out of the way, and you get bozos like me telling you it's spectacular. It's a great movie, and I think people it resonates with that. But from a tech perspective, 3D's back, baby. Like, it's got Imax 3D. Haven't seen that in years. It's back. It's the best 3D I've ever seen.
It's almost like it's riding on its predecessor. Obviously the first Avatar, story wise and kind of movie critic wise, you can have whatever whatever you want for that. But it was definitely lauded as one of the best, if not the best, IMAX 3D presentations out there, which kind of made it a lot of money. It sounds like to me, I haven't heard a single person say, "Oh yeah, I saw Avatar," or I saw Avatar 2, but I saw it without 3D. Like, everyone is only going to see this in 3D.
I wouldn't recommend it. It adds something to the film that I think is very much like The Wizard of Oz. And the fact is, if you saw Wizard of Oz on a black and white TV, you'd be missing a big portion of what made it so special in the 1939 or whatever it came out. Yeah. Like, with Avatar, you're not looking. I think they call it inward 3D and outward 3D. There's another technical term where outward 3D would be like a baseball's coming at you. You're on a roller coaster ride. That sort of gimmicky stuff. But no, this is like, Cameron uses this 3D to like create a world that's so immersive and so spectacular. Like, nothing comes at you; it comes with you. Like, you see things floating in front of you. You see depth to things. You see 3D renders, and a lot of that's aided by the 48 high refresh rate, the 48 frames per second, which is divisive even now with Avatar. I contend, but I kept watching it and it kept jarring back and forth, and after a while, at first your brain's like, "What's happening here? What's going on?" But then you realize what's happening is that it makes it look cleaner. It makes it look clearer. And with 3D, it removes some of the headache and removes some of the static.
What do you think about the long runtime? Because I think that might have also kind of put people on edge with I think it was like a 3 hour and 30 or 40 minute runtime. You
see, here's the thing. It's the old Mel Brooks quote again. I always go back to Mel Brooks because nothing describes something better, this dichotomy of thought. Mel Brooks said, comedy is when I cut my finger. What is it? Tragedy is when I cut my finger. Comedy is when you walk into a manhole and die.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Like, nobody complained about 3 hour Lord of the Rings. Nobody complained about 3 hour this. Nobody complained about 3 hour, Avengers, whatever. Like, and nobody's really complaining about this movie either. The reason they're complaining is because it means less runtimes. Like, if you have a three and a half hour movie, that means you can show the movie less in theaters. That's what they're really saying. But but be honest with you, I've had half a dozen people I know go to the screenings. Even though the movie's all about blue people in the water, nobody's going to the bathroom. Like, they don't want to leave. The movie never lets up. Like, it starts and it goes, and it's long. It's long.
My mom would attest this because Craig and my mom went to go see went to go see this in theaters as well.
Did they see it?
They did see it. I didn't attend, but they went because Craig, of course, wanted to go see it. And I got to say, her story, like, she said the movie was okay because she couldn't really focus on it because the audience was awful in her movie. There was a crying kid the entire time.
Don't do that.
I don't know why someone brought an 8-month-old to a 3.5 hour movie and doesn't remove the kid when they start crying and, flashing lights and booming sounds and whatever. And then on top of that, 40 minutes before the movie ends. So still 40 minutes to go. A kid 1 row over from her throws up and the entire theater smells like you can expect. Man, she had a bad time, but of course none of that's about the movie. Yeah.
Well, you go see the Lion King remake in 2019. It makes $1 billion, and no one likes this movie. No one remembers it because it's a babysitting machine. It's not a movie. Like, the Lion King 2019 was not a movie. It's not a film like you think. It's a technical showpiece, but it's not a film. It's a plagiarized version of the original. You have Cameron with an original IP, and people talk about this. They say story, they say script, they say technical aspect, but at the end of the day, you're seeing something you've never seen before, and you're seeing it in a way you've never seen it before. And it's hard to explain without actually seeing it. But again, I'm not trying to rave and say you're going to like this movie. But for me, for someone who's growing exhausted with the comic book movies, and I have nothing. Look, when I was reading about critics, and a lot of the critics are deploying, oh, the story's simple, the story's this and that. I thought to myself, you're watching a movie. Here's a drinking game for you. Read reviews of Avatar: Way of the Water, and every time you hear the word script, take a drink. You get drunk real quick, because most movie critics are failed screenwriters, and they're going to be the ones that are sitting there in their basement criticizing James Cameron on how to make a successful movie. Think about that for a second. Think of the hubris.
I heard and this is just kind of something that I heard, and it kind of resonated with me, that, and I don't know if it's true, but the first Avatar really found its success not because of the script, and you can say that's simple, but the simple script actually helped the movie, because there's so many things going on. The scenery is so amazing, the world is so immersive, the visuals are so striking that if you were trying to understand 14 levels of irony and sarcasm and creative script writing and creative character development, that if you had to focus on something other than what you were watching, it's very simple to say blue people, good guys, humans, bad people, unobtainium, rare metal, being fought over. Like, if it weren't so simple, it would not have been as impactful visually, because you wouldn't have paid as much attention.
Exactly. Like, if you go back and actually read scripts, which is about as dull as paint, but if you go back and read like the Matrix script, the very iconic scene where Keanu Reeves fights Lawrence Fishburne, it just says they fight. That's all it says. They fight. You can't transpose that visual acuity, which is extraordinary in the Matrix. You can't do that on a script. Like, you're not watching a script. You're not reading a book. Like, and that's the problem, is that too many movie critics don't know how to critique a movie. They don't understand it's a visual medium. Like, I think it was Ollie. Who was his name? One of the Disney Night Old Men. He wrote a book about it called The Illusion of Life, and they talk about this quite a bit, about how animation is a medium of movement. And he says to just show talking heads is to prostitute the medium. And so you have something like this.
Yeah, Disney Animation: The Illusion of Life by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston.
Yep, Ollie Johnston. Like, fantastic. The best book ever written on animation, by the way. The best. Nothing's ever going to be better. It's not Toon Boom Studio where you have Flash. These are guys who invented squash and stretch. But you have something here, and I'm not trying to say that the story is the most sophisticated thing in the world, but it doesn't need to be. But you're watching a story being told visually in a way that you've never seen before. Like, it goes on a tangent on whaling for an hour. It goes on a tangent on this and that, but you're watching a sophisticated piece of technology that is telling an emotional story. And critics who say, oh, the script is simple. No, you're simple. You've gotten so used to being spoon-fed character plot by narrative dumps. Like, oh, remember that time we did this and you became my best friend because we went to college together? Oh, how could I forget that? Thank you for filling me in. No, like, half the stuff you don't know. Like you said, unobtainium. I remember how many people criticized, oh, unobtainium. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. He didn't make it up. Yeah. And now there's no unobtainium in this movie. Spoiler. Now it's about magic whale juice that makes you live forever. So yeah, it's different. It's different. But there's a scene in the beginning where you see Edie Falco. Remember the Mrs. Soprano in The Sopranos? She's in this movie, and she plays a general. And they show her in this amazing mech suit, and she's working out and everything. And here's what Cameron does. Here's what he does. It's amazing. He shows her in this big suit, which is clearly a callback to Aliens. Everything in Avatar 2 is a callback to a James Cameron movie. Everything. Yeah. So she's in this big mecha suit, and she's shadow punching, and she's talking to Critics, the bad guy who's been resurrected into an avatar. But and what does she do in the suit? She drinks coffee. She's using this big mecha suit to hold her coffee cup. Why? Because it's awesome. There doesn't need to be an answer. It's like, this is Cameron saying, look what I can do. Look what I can do. And you watch it, and I want to talk about the high refresh rate, though, the high frame rate. I kind of dug it by the end of it, and I wanted to see more of it because it made the 3D work.
Yeah. So 48 frames per second, and most people know that the traditional frame rate is 24 frames per second, which gives movies their cinematic quality. 48. Let's see. There was a movie a couple of years ago that was released in 48. Everyone's like, I don't like this because it looks too much like a live. It almost.
Well, that was Hobbit. It was The Hobbit, and then there was
it was The Hobbit, and they said it made everything look cheaper, kind of like a live stream, or like a live action.
Well, there's a couple. There was The Hobbit, and then there was Ang Lee has done it better than anybody else, though. Ang Lee did the Billy Lane movie, The Long Walk, I think. Yeah, and he did the Will Smith movie. I forget what that movie was called, where Will Smith fight against himself.
There was like a sequel to like Cloverfield, like the whole Cloverfield series. I think one of them did like 48 frames per second. Yeah.
So when you do but the trick on this movie, which I read, is that he actually filmed the whole thing in 48, and what he did is he slows it down. So when you have narrative scenes and the characters are talking, it becomes 24 frames. But when you see action, and again, it could be jarring watching it flip back and forth. But the 48 high refresh rate, what it does, it creates a clarity that enhances the 3D in a way you've never seen before. It's people have compared it to a video game. It very much is. Like there's even but you see everything. And this is the part I want to talk about visually, is that with this movie, everything is brightly colored, translucent. The 3D creates transparencies. It creates opaqueness that you've never seen before in a film. It's just never seen anything like this. Film traditionally has trouble capturing small details. Like traditional film has trouble capturing raindrops. It has trouble, capturing small movements. Here, like you can see the glass. Like Ben, there's a scene when the people go into mechanical crabs. They have crab suits, and then they have underwater things. And every time you're underwater, it's 48 frames, and you see the clarity becomes almost dimensional itself. Yeah. But it adds visually because you have to look around. You have to scour. It's like playing a video game, and you look around the backgrounds. You have to see. There's so much you could only see if you look for it. And that's sort of I've never seen a sandbox movie before, but at the end of the day, the story is simple. It's very simple. Does not need to be complicated, thank Christ. And it's just like I'm not here getting narrative dumps, character dramas. I don't have to see 20 other movies or TV shows. I don't have to read the books, the comic books, the novels. I don't have to listen to the podcast. The blue people are fighting the turquoise people because they're different color avatars, are Navi. So the blue people and the turquoise people fight the sky people. And that's it. And whales show up, and it's great. It's fantastic. There's robots. There's explosions.
Pretty and from what I understand, from Craig, he definitely enjoyed it. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to hear more opinions that you didn't ask for, of course, over on the Popzara site, you have Chris Mitchell, who went to go see it and wrote a full blown review as well.
He did, but I don't want to say anything more about it other than that the high refresh rate works for the most part. The 3D is spectacular, and like I was talking to you before the show, it's like VR. It's like VR. Like I love the 3D in Avatar. I love it. I don't ever want to see this movie in 2D, which may limit the film at home. But I like going to the theater to see it. Yeah. It's a showpiece.
So there, and taking your idea of a movie / video game and extending it, I should say transitioning that into our next topic, I wanted to jump right into, if you didn't mind, this idea that Amazon is going to be bringing some games to movies and games to television series.
Yes.
Which, Amazon, like, I know that people didn't like, actually, I don't want to say that they didn't like the new Rings of Power. It was more like the House of Dragon, whatever thing, kind of really took center stage. But personally, I saw the Rings of Power and I loved it. It was great. So I'm glad that Amazon is not, I'm sure that they didn't get the results that they were hoping for with that one, but they didn't turn them off from adopting new IPs and creating new things that they think people might want, which is exciting for a couple reasons. And honestly, there's so much background and drama that's happened since you've been on, Nathan, with in particular Henry Cavill, like as an actor and some of his other roles. We should give the nice folks out there who have not been paying attention what's been happening with Henry Cavill, because my quick explanation of it is he dropped out of the Witcher series, which he himself loved, but he said that they deviated too far from the books. The future of the project was not what he envisioned, so he dropped out of that one. And then he was brought back at the end of Black Adam, spoiler alert, to play to confirm that he's going to be playing the new Man of Steel, or is playing Superman in a new Superman movie. A month later, Nathan, that fell through thanks to James Gunn. What a wild ride Henry Cavill is having. And then, of course, the topic of today's show. But what do you think of all that?
And poor man, and he's so ugly, too. Like, what a life.
and he's probably so hurting for money, and he's so ugly, and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Here's the thing about Henry Cavill. You're going to laugh at me when I say this. He's basically like Bruce Campbell. The comedian. Are you familiar with Bruce Campbell?
I've heard the name. I just need to Google his face.
I'll save you some time. Ash, Evil Dead, Army of Darkness. Like, handsome man, funny, talented, everybody loved. We don't know what to do with this guy. And that's what I think Henry Cavill is. Like, what are you going to do? No one's going to say he never got his shot. He was Superman. He was in Mission Impossible. He was in The Witcher. He was in The Count of Monte Cristo. He's in all these. He's probably the top pick for James Bond, if we're being honest.
Yeah, whatever it was between him and Craig, and they decided to go with Daniel Craig. But
Craig Crossman is going to be James Bond.
Daniel Craig, sir. Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig's, but he's gone now. He's left. No, actually, I thought it was the guy from Kick-Ass, the Aaron Johnson kid.
Aren't they going to go with a female Bond in the next iteration? Like, that's what they're kind of.
Did you see the last one?
No, I didn't.
Okay, spoilers. They killed him. He's dead.
Yeah, of course.
Because that's what they do in everything. That's what they do in all these franchises. They kill everybody. So they kill every Star Wars movie, dead. Every franchise, dead. Kill, dead. So anyway, that's original. Here's the thing about Cavill. I wish him the best of luck. I think he's got a great career in front of him. He's a franchise man, though. But the problem is he doesn't seem to be able to lead a franchise in a way that they want. And I think everything I told you about Avatar applies to this, is that we don't have movie stars anymore. We have actors who play roles. And the actor itself is not enough to bring an audience. Like, unless you're Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible or Top Gun.
Jr. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, exactly. So, and nothing against Henry Cavill. He's totally fine. But he was a fine Superman in bad movies. And that's the problem. And I think what James Gunn is doing, he's rebooting everything. And you just have to cut ties. Yeah, and that's the problem.
He had to wipe it clean, although, from what I understand, they said that they're big fans, and there was some nice PR talk, but what it kind of meant to me, Nathan, they already said that they're going to recast Jason Momoa from Aquaman to, I forget what role it was going to be.
That's another guy. Jason Momoa, that's another guy who has no movie star potential either. He's a nice guy, from what I understand. He's interesting, but no one sees his movies. Like, he's got TV shows and movies. He was on people talk about Avatar being expensive. This guy was on a $200 million movie that no one talks about last month. He was on that Slumberland movie. That movie cost $200 million. Avatar cost $350 million. That's all they talk about. Momoa's in a $200 million Netflix movie no one saw. So that's the problem, is that you can't, these people have no star wattage. They simply cannot bring people to a film because people don't watch that anymore.
By the way, Lobo. Was a new hero that they're going to cast him as.
We'll see. The Marvel movies have cratered in a way. Like Black Panther, that's supposedly the savior. Black Panther has made half what the original movie made. Like, you want to hear something crazy about Black Panther? So Black Panther has been out for 2 months. It's been the number one movie every week, but it's been the number one movie with no competition. It's made it hasn't made box office bank the way that they thought. Avatar's been out for 3 days. Avatar's been out for 4 days, and Avatar has made about as much money as Black Panther has in 4 days. Avatar is going to be a juggernaut.
Is the king of long-running, trailing box office receipts.
Exactly. So, like I said, all my arguments about Cameron, I forgive him a lot for doing something ambitious and new. But going back to the Marvel and DC stuff, so James Gunn's taken it over. We'll see how that goes. He's great. I mean, he's done great with Guardians of the Galaxy. He did great with the remake of the Suicide Squad, which is fantastic. The Peacemaker's fun. Anybody who used to work at Troma Films has my blessing. So if you're not familiar with Troma, look it up. It's amazing. They made a movie, Toxic Avenger, Poultrygeist. I could go off all day with Troma.
But and to touch on this real quick before we move on to the other Amazon Studio stories, the Warhammer 40K, I will say that one thing that I think a lot of people like about, at least in the gaming sphere, about Henry Cavill is that he's an unrepentant nerd. He you don't think
I want you to think about that. No, I didn't say that, but I want you to think about something. How do we know that wasn't him vying for the role? Like, these things don't happen like, hey, you want to be in Warhammer? Sure. Like, these things take months. Who's to say that he was in negotiations to do Warhammer? And as a way of testing the waters, he started filming himself playing those games.
Because I've actually played games with I don't want to assume it was him, but I've raided in WoW with him. I have seen him paint Warhammer 40K miniatures. Like he of course filmed himself and live streams himself building PCs and stuff like that. Like it. Of course, he's an actor, and he can act, and he can probably act his way into thinking people think he likes nerd culture, but he does seem like one. And again, my whole point with that one, Nathan, was just that he seems to like 40K. He seems to like 40K. So that he likes
40K $1,000. No, but do you remember that clip from? There's a very famous clip on YouTube with what's his name, Christopher Reeves, and there's a scene. I think it's from Superman 2, and in the scene, Christopher Reeve is playing Nerdy Clark with his glasses, and he's all slunched over, and he decides he's going to take his glasses off, and he's going to tell Lois he's Superman. Yeah, you see that? It's an acting glass. He could do nerdy, and he could do suave and sexy with 30 seconds apart with his face. Cavill can't do that. He's always sexy, and that's the problem. So when you have a sexy man who's built like a brick, crap house, and he's like, oh, and I like doing nerd things. Every nerd is like, God damn it! Like, can you do something badly? Can you just suck at something? Yeah. And that's the problem. Is like he's too perfect. And that's the problem. He needs to have some flaws. His
flaw is keeping series going. So that seems to be his Achilles heel.
I'll say this before we move on. I've never watched the Witcher show, right? I've never watched it, but I understand people like him as the Witcher, and he's gone. I haven't watched the new Witcher show, which has Michelle Yeoh starring in it, the prequel. Yeah. I just want to say this because we're not going to talk about this for a while. What a year she's had. I don't know if the show is any good or not, but Michelle Yeoh has had the greatest comeback I've ever seen any actress ever have in Hollywood. She went from nothing to something, and that's amazing. So I gotta give a shout out to her.
Definitely.
But anyway, Amazon.
Yeah. So from here, I wanted to jump into the other one that Amazon Studios is on the heels of probably one of the best game releases. And I know that they have the Video Game Awards, which is, just like the Emmys or the Oscars that, but for video games. Elden Ring kind of swept the whole thing, which is, probably rightfully deserved. But God of War had probably its best game ever released in the series, which is kind of big to say because the series is very well lauded. Do you think it was that good?
I mean, no, I haven't played it, but I'll say this: if you like the new God of War series, if you like the reboots, or as I always really like to call them, boy games,
right. boy.
I am bored to tears with these games. I don't really care for them very much. I find them mechanical, but they're not for me. But I understand people like them. And I'll say this, God of War Ragnarok sold a bunch. It's Sony's fastest selling game they've ever had. And my own editor, Corey Gallagher, he bought an OLED TV. First game he played was God of War Ragnarok, and he says beautiful. So, in fact, I was going to tie it into Avatar one more way, because a lot of console games, make you switch between, nothing new for PC. You get performance mode, which, runs at 60 frames a second, but degrades the picture, or you get visual mode, which limits it to 30 frames, but you have more clarity. Something like Avatar doesn't compromise, whereas we keep comparing Avatar to video games, but compared to something like God of War, you have to choose because it's just the technology hasn't met the ambition yet. Right. I don't know if the Amazon show you're talking about is going to be based specifically on this or the first one. I think it's just going to amalgamate and just be based on this version, which is less Greek and more Norse. So we'll see.
Well, let's see. So, according to the article that you sent over, was I think it's both incredibly true to the source material and also compelling on its own. So, and obviously, I know that, and I don't blame them. Sometimes when personally, the Amazon creation of the Wheel of Time series. It was fun to see. I'm a huge fan of the Wheel of Time series, and to see it on TV, I'm like, they got that wrong. That's different. That's truncated. That's, they expanded too much on that. I can critique. Most fans of most things want a one-to-one creation with $1 billion budget. I don't think God of War is going to get a one-to-one translation, but because, Nathan, an open world 180-hour, game that you would buy in a store cannot be fit onto an 8-hour screen time. Well, it's not going to be perfect,
I don't think the answer is very simple because, we saw this happen with the Halo series, which was just an abomination.
Did anyone see that happen? Because I don't know anyone who watched it.
Well, again, the first. Oh, it's the most watched. No, the show's terrible. They say it's already going to get a second season, but frankly, they just need to put it out of its misery. I mean, honestly, Microsoft has done everything they can to kill Halo. They've done everything they can by not protecting the franchise. Let me segue real quick. Mm-hmm. Next year, we have what I think is the bellwether test, and that's going to be the Super Mario Brothers movie. Depending on how the Super Mario Brothers movie does, I think right now what we're seeing is tepid experiments with video game shows. Like, we're going to see streaming shows, we're going to see this, but we haven't really seen a Hollywood company go all in yet. We haven't seen a Lord of the Rings yet. We haven't seen a Star Wars yet. We've seen little bits, we've seen low budgets, and there's been 100 of these things, but we haven't seen anything cross. If the Super Mario Brothers movie does well, it's going to change the dynamic. And I think you're going to have a switch from comic book to video game because there's thousands of IPs that are desperate to become video games, but movies. But I wanted to tie in this whole Amazon thing with a larger picture.
Yeah.
And the fact that I think Amazon is doing something very, very interesting here. I think what they're doing is they're getting into the gaming industry backwards in a way that nobody is seeing. And I'm starting to see all the puzzle pieces come together. Oh, yeah? I wasn't a big fan of Stadia, not a big fan of GeForce. I mean, whether they work or not, but they are going to just insist on streaming video games at some point. Something's going to happen. At some point, it's going to work. At some point. Amazon has Luna, which is actually the best working of them all. Have you tried Luna?
I have not tried, I'll be honest with you, any streaming service, really, well, Luna included.
Here's the killer app. I don't like it when they say free, but about a week and a half ago, a little late to the party, Amazon announced that they were partnering with Ubisoft, that if you had purchased games from Ubisoft store and you had Luna through Amazon Prime, you could play them for free. That's what they used. So if you have Amazon Prime right now, go to Chrome. It won't work on Firefox. Go to Chrome, log into your Prime, then log into Luna, and it'll connect them together. And they got some free games. You can try Luna out right now. It doesn't cost any money to try it. You don't have to pay a tier to try it. Yeah. But if you have games you purchased on Ubisoft, like Far Cry or Assassin's Creed, you can play them as much as you want. There's no extra fee for that. It's why are they doing this? This is crazy. And because I think what Amazon is doing, they're expanding what Prime is. They did this last year with Grubhub. They're going to be doing this more with books. Microsoft is starting to put streaming apps on TVs. So is GeForce, but those require subscription services to even try them. To get anything. If Amazon decides to start putting a Luna app on their own Fire TVs, which are very popular or whatever, you're going to have instantly the single biggest user base of any streaming service instantly, just by flicking it on. And the funny thing is, Ben, it works better than them. It works better than Stadia. It works better than GeForce. It works better than Xbox. Do you think that's
just because Amazon owns,
yes,
their own tubes of the internet?
They own tubes, but it just seems the software is better planned for that sort of thing.
Just optimized. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I thought Netflix was going to be the one to do this. I really did. And they still might do it. And that's not an endorsement of Luna by any stretch, but I will say this: we've done some tests on it. Now I have a hardwired Giga internet myself, so it's different. But I tried Luna at a hospital, worst case scenario, hospital on a hospital free Wi-Fi on my old laptop, and it ran perfect. Like I've never had that sort of experience. Yeah, I would just call you. You're a tech guy. Try it out. Just see, I got it working on my iPad, and it worked great. It would not be my first choice, but if you have a Chromebook, you have an iPad, and you start seeing all these games, you don't have a nice PC, it's an option, and it's Amazon, and they're giving it away. I don't want to say, I keep saying for free, but they're rolling it into Amazon Prime. So I would say try it, but I think we're going to have to look at Amazon getting into this business from behind as opposed to in front. Like instead of requiring you to get another subscription, instead of requiring you to do this, they're just going to give it to you. They're just like, oh yeah, Prime, here you go. Here's Luna. Here you go. There you go. And I think that's
is their MO. Yeah, that is their MO. Yeah. Just keep paying us $160 a year for perks and not one thing in particular. But yeah,
but it's free. It's totally free if you pay.
Yeah, but, free if you pay. Exactly.
But I will say this: out of all the streaming services I've used, and I've used them all, Luna's the best. I honestly think it's the best, best performing. We'll see what happens with it.
So,
but if you
real quick, could you explain just real quick games that you own for free? So, if games that you own means that you still have to go out and you have to buy, Assassin's Creed or Watch Dogs Legion. You still have to go out and buy them, right? You can't just you have Amazon Prime and get free games.
So, for example, the only comparison would be like GeForce. Like now, whereas if you have games you bought on Steam and everything, but you still have to rent the service from GeForce. Gotcha. You still have to pay to play. So what Amazon's doing, they're skipping that if you already have Amazon Prime and you own the games from Ubisoft, you can play the games you own using the Luna service for no extra fee. So you don't have to go and rebuy a version of it. Like with Stadia was sunsetted. It's gone now. But what Ubisoft was doing, Ubisoft was allowing you to transfer your purchases through Stadia to PC, which is nice. They didn't have to do that, which is nice. But if you have an Ubisoft like Plus account or whatever it's called, Ubi Connect, and you bought Assassin's Creed, if you bought Far Cry, if you bought that, and if you link your account to Luna right now, you can play those games on your phone. If you have a controller, you can play them on your browser. You can play them on a Chromebook. You don't have to pay an extra fee. And I think that's the way to do this. Like requiring people to pay an extra subscription to even try the service that doesn't run well. Like that's what killed Stadia. That's what's hurting in video. That's what's hurting Microsoft has a nice one too, but you have to pay for Ultimate. You have to pay for Game Pass Ultimate.
Could you really blame Stadia, though? And I know that you could, but could you really blame Stadia for saying this will be a subscription service in the time, even just 1-2 years ago or 3 years ago, everything became a subscription service. Everything is a subscription service. So like they were trying to figure out how to monetize this, and getting Amazon as a huge backer, that's one way to do it. But subscription was just kind of the rule of law back then.
Well, the problem is it was always DOA. I told you it was DOA before it even came out. I mean, a fool could see this. The problem is you're introducing a new technology that's untried. You're asking people to pay exactly the same amount of money that you pay on an Xbox or PC with none of the benefits and with new restrictions, plus a service on top of that. That's like paying for Netflix and then paying to watch the movies. I mean, we do that with Amazon Prime. We do that with Costco. We do that with Sam's Club. Like, I don't know why we pay to shop, but we do. But there needs to be a benefit, and there was no benefit to it. That's the problem. Like, if you're going to make me do all these extra hoops, you got to make it worth my while. Like, I can go to Walmart right now. I go to Walmart and buy a tube of toothpaste. Cost me $1.50. But if I go to Sam's Club and I don't have a membership, they won't even let me shop. I'm not going to pay $100 a year to buy toothpaste. I only go to Sam's Club if I need like 50 rolls of toilet paper today. Yeah. So it's like you need to have some sort of incentive. They need to come to you. And if they don't do this, your product fails. Like that's economics 101. There's never been a product that succeeded by grubbing you. Like you need to make it worthwhile.
Makes sense. So let's transition our topic here a little bit, and we have covered here on the program before. Last time we talked about Epic Games, the maker of Fortnite, was when they were having a little tiff with Apple, and that had to do with the in-store app payment thing, and Apple taking 30% cut, and Epic Games saying no, we won't, we don't want to pay that kind of thing just because we use our app on the. Anyways, long story short, it was $2 billion companies, $1 trillion and $100 billion company, arguing about your 30 cents. It was no one was really right, no one was really wrong, but suffice to say, Fortnite did not get everything that they wanted from that legal decision. Well, not getting what they wanted from this legal decision, Fortnite maker Epic Games has agreed to pay $520 million, which I don't know why, Musk is just on the news, so that's why it's going to be right there on your screen for a second. But Epic Games agreed to pay $520 million in a settlement. If I have this right, $275 goes to the U.S. government for violating certain things, and $250 go for refunds to consumers. Nathan.
Okay, first of all, I want to point something out. That this is why I hate the tech industry sometimes, because they throw this crap at you and they know what they're doing. Like, you're reading a story about Epic and they poison the well. They want you to obsess over Musk because of SEO. I get it, right?
Yeah.
But this needs to stop. But anyway, forget that. I have no opinion on this whole thing. I think these games are all spammy, but they do target children. I got to tell you, when I went to go visit my nieces and nephews a couple months ago, their whole world revolved around Fortnite. They watch the videos. They don't even play the game half the time. They just watch the videos. They watch this. It's been so monetized. I felt a little icky because I felt like you can see the scam. You can see it happening, but there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And I felt bad. And but that being said, I grew up with He-Man and Transformers. I grew up with cartoons that sold me toys. I get it. But I still had to go out and get the toys.
Not
and if I couldn't afford the toys,
cereals and more. Yeah, of course.
And by the way, that was a result of the FCC. Did you know that? The FCC, it used to be illegal for you to advertise a cartoon toy. The FCC lifted those restrictions in the early 80s. Then you had the floodgates. That's why you had all that stuff. Didn't exist before. Didn't exist. You got around it because a manufacturer would do a comic book with Marvel. Mm-hmm. Like, that's where a lot of that comes from. Transformers comic book. He-Man comic book.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, comic book. That's how they got around the rules. But going back to the Fortnite thing, now these people, it's like having a saline drip directly in your kid's bedroom. And you're giving a kid a phone. First of all, if you're a parent, do not give your child a phone. If you're going to do something, give them a Switch or something where they can't easily charge a credit card. You know what I mean? But the fact of the matter is...
Yeah, because no purchases ever go through on Switch. It's a horrible marketplace.
It's harder.
I will say, though, and for my own curiosity and for everyone else out there, if you're wondering why they were fined, the complaint claims that Epic made it extremely easy for children to purchase in-game items with a single click or button press without parental approval, resulting in more than 1 million parental complaints to Epic. So it's not even like 1 million transactions, and each transaction was $3 or $4. 1 million active complaints.
Yeah,
Nathan, that's a lot of parents that are ticked off.
Well, because I blame the parents, to be honest with you. You're letting your child basically have a casino in their phone. That's what this is, casino. I mean, we're talking about loot boxes, right? But we're talking about in-app purchases. We're talking about this and that. I mean, I played Fortnite. I mean, I think the game is great. I think the game is really well made. I think it's fantastic. It's a fantastic cross-promotional tool. No one's arguing any of that. But the fact of the matter is, this has been the crux of the industry for like the last 3 or 4 years. We've talked about this. We've talked about loot. We've talked about DLC. We've talked about in-app purchases. We've talked about this stuff. It's spammy, but the fact is they know exactly what they're doing by giving you access to your child. I mean, how many stories have there been about this stuff? Like, we saw a story the other day about a 10-year-old boy who shot his mother because she wouldn't let him get a VR headset, right? And you see stories like, oh, my child, he doesn't love me. He just plays Xbox all day. Take it away. You're the parent. Like,
there was
a story
parents? About parents complaining that games like Fortnite were, their kids were getting addicted. They weren't listening to them. They were, not eating. They were not going to school or doing schoolwork or stuff like that. And honestly, it immediately took me back to 2005, 2006 with World of Warcraft, and there were articles in gaming magazines about the exact same thing.
Well, I'll say this. I have some friends, and if you're listening, friends, you know who you are because you have children. And I asked, like, hey, what do you want? What do your kids want for Christmas? And like, oh, they want Roblox points. No, I'm not getting that. I'm not getting them Roblox points. Like, what real things do they want? Like, I'm not going to give them a drug drip. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it is. I'm just throwing my money out the window by giving them fake things. I got them. You know what I got them? I got them toys.
Yeah.
They're not going to like the toys as much as the Roblox, but those toys will be around a lot longer. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, though. I always see this stuff. And I always think, what a scam this is. Because why does the government get $245 million? They didn't do anything. Like, think about this.
Yeah.
The government finds them guilty, and the government gets to say, well, you have to pay us $300 million. Why? You didn't get harmed.
I'm assuming because they violated the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, and fines are just part of the punishment. You can't put Epic Games in jail and let them, and let a company sit in a jail cell. The government should not get a penny. The government should say, here's $245 million that we've extracted from you. We will reimburse this to like a cancer charity or something. I've never felt it prudent that the government can levy fines on a private company for violating the rules, and the government profits from them. Like, I'm not going to get into the whole police thing, but you live in a community that literally indexes fines on parking meters so they can afford things. Like, for example, like you live in a part of North Carolina with college kids, right? So it's like the budgets usually predict how many fines they have. They call them syntaxes. So like they expect you to not pay your meter so they could take that fine and pay for, a bus or something. That's one thing. But it's like they require you to mess up. So what I'm saying is when the government can find you guilty, which they probably were, but then the government profits off that. I don't like that. Like, to me, that's putting your finger on the scale. I've never liked that. I don't like it when they did it with Microsoft. I don't like it when they did it with AT&T. I don't like what they did with Apple. But I don't. And this is definitely getting into a little bit of the politics of it, but to me, it's just what government agencies do. That's the only card they really have against, companies is how do you punish a company?
No, take the money. Take the money. No, take the money. I always felt that financial punishments should be commensurate. Like, if you're worth $20 billion, it should be a percentage of that. You know what I mean? It shouldn't just be a blanket thing. But that once you got the money, right? Once you got the money, it should be distributed to something like to help reinforce this. Like, you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying, though. It's like that's my whole opinion. But honestly,
I got you. But to your point, half the money does go back to parents in the form of refunds that the Epic Games did pull in. So there's two parts to this. There's of course the monetary fine, but then there's also the refunds that if you are the parent of one of those kids that did make a very simple purchase, then you will get a refund through Epic at some point. So, I think there was also the company also allegedly was, they were tracking the spending habits and consumer habits of children under the age of 13, which is also, not right. So.
Here's my thing, though. This actually reinforces Apple's argument, though, about the whole walled garden, is that if you allow third-party payment systems to go in, there's less checks and balances regarding this. I think the whole crux of the argument between Apple and Epic, right, was that Apple did not appreciate Epic's circumvention of their own in-app purchase things, which I think is now codified in this law. Like, I think the government agrees with Apple to some extent. To some extent, that Apple's claim that Epic was circumventing that.
Yeah, from what I understand, that the resolution to that was that if you make a purchase through the iOS App Store, through an app on the iOS App Store, yes, you do owe Apple that money. But Apple cannot prevent you from saying, click this link and subscribe on our webpage, and then it takes you out of the iOS Store and sends you to like a web link or something like that. So they can't stop companies from doing that, but they can take the 30%.
Yeah, I mean, something needs to happen here. I mean, I didn't put this in one of the stories, but I was actually astonished to learn how advertising revenue trades were done with third-party apps like Roku. Like, I don't know if you saw that story. I didn't put it on the list, but like when Disney and Netflix started having, ad-supported tiers on their apps, they weren't compatible with certain systems because, like, I think Apple TV was one, the Roku was another one, because I didn't know this, Ben, that if you have an ad-supported tier, a third of those ads are supposed to go to the manufacturer. Like, for example, if you have the Roku box, right, the new Disney Plus, a third of your ads have to be served by Roku, and then Roku keeps the revenue. Disney doesn't get anything. Isn't that strange? I didn't know that either. And that's why you had the technical difficulties of it. So all these companies, every one of these companies has the revenue streaming. They just, how they calculate it is different, depend on the software. Did not know this. That's why, for example, if you sign up with Disney Plus on Apple, Apple gets 30% of that. But if you subscribe to the ad-based one, then Apple still gets a third, but they have to provide the ads. So there's a lot more going on than just, push a button. It's really complicated.
Yeah, definitely seems like it. So for the sake of time, if you'd like to summarize real quick the whole Atari and how they're pulling from the virtual console manufacturing thing. So just real quick, and of course this ties into, I think we talked about it last time, where you have a review of the 50th anniversary collection of Atari.
What a year.
50. So
the new Atari VCS is confusing because the original Atari was also called the VCS, Video Computer System. It was eventually renamed the Atari 2600. But I'll say this, the Atari VCS we're talking about is the whatever you call Atari now, what Atari in name only. Their version of basically a micro console. It's basically a PC. And from what I understand, the performance is actually pretty good on some of it. But the fact is it was a failure. Same way the Intellivision is probably vaporware at this point. Apple pulled the plug on it. There's just no market for this. And which is sad because on Popzara, like a lot of places, we were actually really surprised when we reviewed the Atari 50th anniversary collection. I sent you a link. I don't know if you have the link, but it's one of the best games of the year, despite the fact the games themselves aren't very good.
Yeah.
And it's because that's part of your history. If you know anything about Atari, this is a company that started really high and they cratered. Like, there's no way around it. They cratered and they made every mistake you could make. And it was hubris, it was stupidity, it was everything. But it's part of the history of the thing. And the collection itself, I'll say this, I played it. It's the best video game collection interface I've ever seen. Like nothing compares to it. Even though the games themselves are not good for the most part, they just don't hold up. Most of them. But it's so addictive because you learn a lot. Like, well, these people did this. This happened. It's wonderful. It's the best thing Atari's done in 30 years. But that's it. That's not saying a lot. Atari is a company that has been mismanaged every way. That is not, by the way, that is not George Lucas. He looks like George Lucas, but he's not George Lucas. I would recommend everybody playing Atari 50th collection, but might be the only way to play Atari because this thing is dead now. Yeah. So look at that controller. Nobody wants that controller. Nobody likes that. Maybe that one, but
the original joystick, absolutely. It's pretty something else. But yeah, so
No, I mean, like when they say things like Intellivision, Atari, like they have no cachet anymore. Like, right. I'm sorry, it'd be like bringing Sears back or Kmart. Like, there's a reason they went bankrupt. There's a reason why they died. So but I don't know. Like I said, I'm not shedding any tears over this.
Yeah. And let's be honest, products like these are purely driven on nostalgia, and I feel like video games have come so far and are so much better. No offense, are so much better that the nostalgia really isn't there. More so than just like a museum piece. So that's that. Let's go ahead and wrap this up, Nathan, because I want to keep this around an hour and all that good stuff. So, the state of gaming, December 2022. You and your writers every month get together, talk about numbers and talk about different video games that come out, all that kind of thing. I think you must have had a pretty good month to talk about because there has been, like, as far as video games go, it's been pretty good.
Well, it's been a good year for the most part. I won't lie to you and say I followed everything. I've been really busy with other things, but no, we've been pretty good on covering it. We are starting to put together our best of podcast, which we usually do sometime in January. later than everybody else. But no, it's been a really good year for everybody except Atari. Actually, no, Atari too. But whether you have a PlayStation 5 or 4, Xbox S or S, or Switch or PC, there's something for everybody. iOS did really good this year too. Android. One of the best games of the year, for example, is a game called Vampire Survivors. Have you heard of it?
I have heard and seen and played a lot of it. Yes.
Yeah. But like, what a little thing, but it's on everything. And what's so funny is games like Vampire Survivors and a lot of other things, they make the point that technology has reached such an epoch right now that you can get a good experience on everything. Every device you have has something worthwhile, and isn't that the way it's supposed to be? Don't you want it like that? Like, yeah. Like I said, maybe some people will say, "Oh, this game would look better if it had better graphics." Probably. Maybe does it need better graphics? We don't know. I mean, God of War. I'll say this: God of War Ragnarok, the biggest game on the PlayStation 5. If you have a PlayStation 5, you are so happy because you finally have something you can play. But you know what? Game looks amazing on the PS4. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if you have a PS4, you're still lucked out. So everything's there. The only console that I think probably didn't get as much love as it should have was probably the Xbox. I think that's due to Microsoft. They just haven't seemed to have supported it in a way that they should have. But I think everybody kind of notices that.
Yeah, and Microsoft is making big investments in their gaming arm, obviously with the potential acquisition of Activision Blizzard King. That they, and of course everything that they're doing with the Gaming Pass and game streaming on the Windows platform. I mean, they're doing stuff. It's just that
you notice I said console.
They're throwing money around. Yeah.
Like I said console because I think when you have a console, there's the expectation you're going to have some exclusives. You're going to have an experience you get anywhere else. I think Microsoft, for all their credit, they've done really well this year on Windows. Like I've said this at the beginning, I like Windows 11. They're supporting it quite a bit. It's done really well for them. But I think the problem is that I think the Microsoft game experience is no longer limited to just that. Like I said, they're getting into streaming, they're getting into other things. Right. And if you have an Xbox Series X or S, you're probably going to have a good time because Game Pass makes it worthwhile. There's lots of stuff out there. And I don't want to give the impression that there's not, but it's just, I think we're starting to see, what's the word I'm looking for? Maximum. Whereas we're going to be happy here as long as you just play games and don't worry about technology. I think you're going to be happy. Yeah. It sounds weird to say that. It sounds weird because I like new stuff too. I want to see whiz bang, new stuff. But enjoy it right now because everything what you have is probably good enough.
Yeah, and that's certainly the case because a lot of these games, and I like that you mentioned Vampire Survivors in particular. That game looks like it should have came out, 90s in the 90s on Flash. It's really not that complicated, but boy, is it a lot of fun, and it's simple, and like I said, if you like games, there are good games out there. So good stuff.
I will say this though, going back to the Atari thing for a second, I said the games were very good. There are some games that hold the test of time.
Of course.
You have simplistic things like, you won't find Pac-Man on there, by the way, because that's Namco. But like the idea that the Atari experience is obsolete is invalidated by things like Vampire Saviors. Vampire Saviors is a game that has no story. It has nothing to it except for the gimmick. And that gimmick is awesome. Like that's the thing. That's what games are all about. It's all about, it's all about finding why you come back. And I think for the most part, 2022, pretty good year.
And I couldn't agree more. Looking forward to 2023, and then we're going to head out after we cover this topic. But CES, usually the biggest tech event in the year, and I will say it probably still is.
Still is.
CES 2023 is going to happen in January, I believe the 5th through the 8th next year. We're taking off a little bit of time. I'm going to be going digitally, which means I'm going to be ignoring the whole thing until after I get back from my vacation and reading emails. Obviously CES every year. I know that in certain years, in 2016 it was the IoT, in 2018 it was the OLED, and 2022 it was the mega 70-80 inch OLED screens. There's I would say like in 2019 there were self-driving cars. Nathan, there's usually a theme that people are really excited about. This year, we were talking before the show, we really can't put our finger on one, you know?
Not yet.
There's not a singular technology that we're like, man, can't wait until we see the color changing BMW at the show. Like, you know, there's not that one big thing, but is there anything that you're kind of hoping to look for? And let's also branch that into, I know that you're sending out a couple of your correspondents out there as well. What is Popzara going to do with CES?
Well, we will be attending. It's scaled back like everything else because the show has been rudderless the last few years, whereas it didn't know how to handle the pandemic. And if I can just say this without being controversial, it was unpleasant. Their implementation of COVID measures was unpleasant, both for exhibitors and for guests. Whether that was necessary or not will, depend on how you view it. I don't think any such thing is going to happen this year. I think basically the theme of 2023 CES will be, we're back. Come and enjoy us again. And I think just being able to handshake people, being able to say hi, but we'll have to contend with the fact that the show has become better digitally. Like that's the thing. And what's interesting to me, and I think you and I will plan this out like we always do, that to get the perspective of someone like my editor, Herman Exum, who will be attending, he will be there on the floor. And you, of course, will be watching digitally. You will both be getting a very different CES experience that does not invalidate each other. And I think they will complement each other. You simply can't see everything. You can't. Right. But online, you can get a brief overview. So I saw that Dyson was demonstrating some headphone mask with like headphones with a mask. It got ridiculed.
The air filter or the filtered air headphones. Yeah. Yeah,
you look like Bane from Batman. But the fact is that it kind of got laughed at because it seems like there's just absolutely no movement in that area anymore. It's dried at the, it's shriveled up. There are no COVID restrictions on CES. There's no masking required. There's no vaccination requirements. The world wants to move on.
CES,
but
and to your point, CES 2022. You're right. That I would say that was the trend for that was how to UV disinfect your workspace, how to filter your air through your headphones, how to really keep safe from COVID, and that's not going to draw attention anymore. That's not going to draw media coverage.
Well, there was also the uncertainty that they could change the rules when you were at the event. They could restrict this, they could have this, and that just gave an uncertainty that tech journalists just weren't willing to go for. And I think it'll be interesting because I think we will see some trends emerge before, and we'll have to rally back. It's in 2 weeks. It's in 2 weeks from I think tomorrow or Thursday. So we'll have plenty of time to talk about that, Ben. I'm sure we'll get some good content out of that, both of us.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I know he's looking forward to it. I mean, Herman's been looking forward to it. He's missed the show a little bit.
I have seen Herman in action. Man, is he a machine when he goes from booth to booth and really,
he's good.
He's definitely good shaking hands and getting overviews. And
can I say this? Like when I talked about Avatar with you, I was trying to find the magic of the movie and everything. Herman just doesn't find the magic. He just finds the details. Yes. He's all business. And I'm looking forward to him collecting some good data while he's there, and we can share it with the audiences.
Yep, and I'll do my best.
Both audiences, by the way, you and us, both.
Yep, and of course we will, we'll come back after CES, and of course we'll have some coverage during CES. I already have companies kind of reaching out to me and saying, hey, we like to do some interviews. So we're probably going to line up those after CES because I know that during, as much fun as it is to kind of get them during the show, man, Nathan, every time I talk to these the PR reps, I'm like, I want to interview the company, and they're like, oh God, when, and I'm like, after CES, and they're like, oh thank God, and they have a sigh of relief because their schedules are so packed. So CES is going to trail out a little bit because there's so much to cover, and we're going to cover it. And of course, popzara.com, you can check that out there, and computeramerica.com, where you'll find today's show notes, and of course CES coverage, contest giveaways, social media, all that and more. Nathan, thank you so much for joining us here on the program, and this was a lot of fun. And Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas,
Merry holidays
to everyone. Merry holidays to everyone. I hope that you at least found this fun, entertaining. This is a very relaxing, kind of post show. I will say that Computer America traditionally and will continue to take off the week between Christmas and New Year. And due to my marriage, January 1st, thank you everyone. Wait, actually I have something for that before the outro. Thank you. My marriage, January 1st. Thank you very much. Oh, please calm down. Perfect reaction. We will be back with more Computer America after January 8th. Let's see. I think that's going to be, yes, January 9th. There we go. That's the day after January 8th. Will be our first. All right, calm down. Okay. So, January 9th will be our first day back. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you then, January 9th. And until next time, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.